Roberto Bedoya.
Mr. Tepper, how are you?
Welcome to Tempe.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Thanks for taking time to walk and talk a bit.
Very good.
Let's get underway.
Very good.
So we are, just before we start walking, we are in the middle of James Turrell's heir apparent.
Okay.
And I spent a fair amount of time here, sunset, sunrise, and the way that James Turrell works with light and positive and negative space is really sort of perspective bending.
Okay.
And when I think about you, I think about perspective bending, right? That spending time with you is like being in one of these
in a mixer
spaces,
rather than
because you always see the world a little differently after you talk. So, tell me a little bit about where that has come from for you as a sort of a critic, someone who's able to hold up a mirror, who's able to change our perspective. Where does that fire come from?
Let me tell you a mom story.
I love a mom story. Let's do it.
I was at a conference in St. Louis, Opera America, and they were talking about all of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you know me well enough that I just don't always buy rhetorics that are, and it felt like it became like a checklist for the field. Like, okay, I got a DEI department. And I said, you know what? Here's my story. My mom lived to 95. She passed away 3 years ago. Towards the end of life, she was bedridden. She invited me in. I was visiting. I said goodbye. She called me back. She goes, I know why you're so social. I said, okay, Ma, why? She goes, well, I was pregnant with you, and I was trying to get all the Mexican Americans in our neighborhood to vote. So you've been to 100 doors before you were even born.
Where do you think we are in arts and culture right now?
Well, I think it's really interesting, and this is not a deep thought, it hasn't been developed, but I think we're in a funny moment of evolution.
Yeah.
There's a greater sort of validation and mindfulness about sort of informal cultural practices. Such as, you know, the barber that is a storyteller in the neighborhood.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Kind of these cultural bearers, the significance of culture as the ways of a community expression, not so much artists and arts organizations, but broadly culture.
Stuff that exists outside of our institutions.
Yeah, outside of the normal frames.
In our families.
Yeah,
in our
exactly. Foodways is very folklore practice. Those are all very sort of, people are paying more attention to them. At the same time, we have this other sort of new workforce called creatives, of you know, designers and coders and webby people who are like kind of in the marketplace.
Right.
So in this moment for arts and culture, it's like how do they fit into our tent? You know what I mean? Where are they? What do we do? How do we support them?
Okay, so you're here as a creative placemaking fellow, but you're also a critic of that word, creative placemaking. Tell me what's wrong with creative placemaking? What's the perspective shift that you have added to that conversation?
And I'll take this moment to thank you and ASU and the field at large of creative placemaking, policy activists, artists. When that term first came out into the discourse, I just said, I just felt it wasn't right for me, and mainly because I was working in Tucson at that time, and I had a very robust civic engagement initiative. So I kept saying that before you could have places of belonging, you have to have a sense of belonging.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the creative placemaking initial articulation of that term was so much bricks and mortar and urban design. And I'm still saying what I'm saying. I want to talk about the ways in which people belong. You know what I mean? And so, to me,
so you use the word place keeping instead of place making.
Right. And I understand that. I understand the traps of that word, because place keeping can lead to a form of sentimentality. I want the old days.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, I understand the politic that you're trying to maintain a neighborhood vibe. You're trying to figure out what to do. And my mayor is really keen on that language a lot.
So, Roberto, you you are extraordinarily creative. When I think about, you're a poet and a policymaker. You kind of combine those two things, which is a beautiful thing. We need more poetry in policy. How do you see yourself using your creativity and your poetry to change the world?
I don't know the quote offhand, but I love this poet by the name of Robin Blazers. He's passed, he was Canadian. And he uses the phrase composing the world. So I think of all my artist community engaged in composing the world. As a policymaker, how do I compose the world? How do I bring my weird poetic sensibilities into my arm wrestling?
Into the political arm wrestling and policy arm wrestling.
Yeah. And one last story. So I did the cultural plan in Oakland, and I hear a lot from our artist community. And Oakland's wonderful. It's got a rich activist community, and they're like the clenched fist.
Right.
They're out there doing this. My job is to do this, to do the arm wrestling. And at the end of the day, come on, honey, give me your hand. At the end of the day, there's the handshake. You know what I mean? So that's like how these dynamics work. The clenched fist, the arm wrestling and the handshake. So I told the mayor that story, and she goes, "Roberto, you forgot something." I said, "What?" "The sucker punch."
Well, it's delighted to have you here with us. Always inspired. We've been, I think, at the handshake for a long time, but always ready for the fist and the arm wrestle, because when you're challenging us to be better at thinking about arts and culture, about thinking about public good, you're doing it always from an authentic place, and the field is better for it because of your challenges and your vision and your poetry. And we're delighted you're a Creative Placemaking Fellow here at ASU.
I'm honored, man.
And I know Oakland is thriving under your leadership. And
Oakland is alive.
well, that's alive and thriving.
There you go.
Thanks, Roberto, for being here.
Thank you, sir.